Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning into this video about how to use Microsoft Word to create tabs. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, this is sort of a complicated thing to do in Microsoft Word. You need to pay close attention during this video to get how it works, but you're probably still going to have questions. You really don't learn tabs until you're doing it. And while you're doing it, if questions come up, be sure to email me or stop on by and ask me about anything that you don't understand. I'm going to open the WP3 assignment, which is going to show you the document that you need to produce. You need to type all of this information in to this document, and you need to line it all up correctly. Additionally, you need to make sure that the font is Times New Roman, and I'm going to be sharing with you some other things about the font that are important as we get going. Also, if you look at the instructions at the top of this page, you see that you will have to include a header. You'll have to vertically center the information on your page. That's something that's located sort of at a unique place in Microsoft Word. And then you also need to have half-inch margins on each side. Let's do those easy things first. I'm going to open Microsoft Word, and we're going to set up the document first because once we do that, it's going to be easier to work with the tabs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the layout, and I'm going to set a custom margin so that there's a half-inch on the left and a half-inch on the right. When I hit OK, now I see that my margins are spread out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a header, and I'm just going to put my name at the top left, because that was in the instructions as well. I'm going to close the header and footer. Now my paper is basically ready for me to get started with the assignment. The last thing I need to do is I need to vertically center all of my content. To do that, you go to the Layout tab. That's a page setup thing, but it's not in the page setup list here on the ribbon. So I actually have to go to the page setup menu, which is this little arrow at the bottom right hand corner. I have to go to the Layout tab, and I will find the option to vertically align my page to the center in here. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to vertically align my page to the center right away because it makes it really confusing. I'm going to be typing on the middle of my page if I do that. Instead, I'm going to do that at the very end because it's much more easy for me to work with a page that behaves the way I'm used to them behaving, and I'm used to typing from the top down. Now, on this page, I am going to create a bunch of tab stops. But before I do that, let me just quickly explain a few things about how tabs work. To create tab stops in a paper, you need to add them to the ruler at the top. Now, I have a ruler at the top of my page, but sometimes when you open Microsoft Word, it won't be there. To get this ruler added to the top of your page, you go to View, and you make sure that ruler is selected. If I deselect it, this is what it looks like without. And when I select it, here's my ruler. Now here's the thing. When you hit the Tab key on your keyboard, what it does is it moves the cursor to the next available tab stop. Maybe you're used to tabbing things over, like when you indent paragraphs and things. The reason that that works is because Microsoft Word automatically defaults to setting a tab stop at every half-inch. So if I hit tab from the current position of the cursor, it's going to move over a half-inch. If I hit it again, it'll move over another half-inch. If I type a word and then hit tab again, it's going to move to the next half-inch marker. Now notice it's not going to move a full half-inch, it just moves to the next marker, and so on. That's how tabs work. But here's the thing. When you set your own custom tabs, all of those default tabs that are built into Microsoft Word, they just disappear. So if I were to set my own custom tab stops in the ruler at the top of the page, it would no longer recognize any of those half-inch tab stops that are normally there. So here's what I'm saying. Pressing tab doesn't just move the cursor over half an inch. I think that's what a lot of people are used to doing with it because they assume that it's just automatically pushing the cursor over. What it's actually doing is it's moving it to the next tab stop. So let me show you what that means by typing some text that we're going to use tabs for. We'll use a left tab stop. We're going to use a center tab stop. I typed a tab in between. We'll use a right tab stop. And actually, we're going to use a decimal tab stop first. We're going to use those different kinds of tabs in Microsoft Word. And what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to create 3 lines of this text, because if I do that, you'll be able to see a little better how tab stops behave. They behave sort of uniquely depending on which line you're on. So I'm actually just going to take this line and I'm going to copy it and paste it down to the next line. And there we go. I have 3 lines of text. Now I'm going to put my cursor on the middle line. Here's the first thing you need to know about tabs. When I insert tab stops at the top of the page, it's going to insert it on the line where the cursor currently is. So any tab stops I put in here are going to only apply to this line of text. And I'm going to create a left tab stop at 0.25. I'm going to create a center tab stop at 2. I'm going to create a decimal tab stop at 5. And I need to see I clicked too far over. It's a little past 5, so I can click and drag my tab stops to move them wherever I want them. So I'll move it over to 5. Then I'm going to create a right tab stop at 7. Now, I didn't actually create the different types of tab stops yet. I just put all my tab stops in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click one of those stops, and it should bring up the tabs page. Now, sometimes when you double click, if you miss the tab stop, it'll bring the page setup page up. This is not correct. This is not the correct menu. It should be a tabs menu. So let's try that again. I click on any tab. As long as I get it directly on the tab, it'll bring up the tabs menu. Notice it lists all of the positions of my tab stops. On this page, I can make all sorts of changes. Let's say, for instance, that I don't want any tab stops on this line of text. What I can do is I can click this Clear All button, and it gets rid of all the tab stops. If you want to clear all of the tab stops from your entire document, you could hit Control A in the document to select the entire thing, then double click on a tab stop to select the tab menu. Sometimes you just have to insert your own tab stop first and then double click it. And then you can click Clear All. It'll clear all tab stops out of your entire document. You could start over. But right now, I want to add some tab stops. I may actually cancel that because I don't actually want to clear all of them. And I'm going to re-click into the tabs menu. And instead of clearing them, I am going to set them as different types of tab stops. Now, to set the properties of one of the tab stops, you have to click and highlight the position of that tab stop on the page. So for instance, this 0.25 inch tab stop, I want it to be left align with no leader. And that's exactly what it is. I don't have to change that. But the 2-inch tab stop, I want this to be a center tab stop. So I'm going to select center alignment. And I still don't want it to have any kind of leader. That means a leader, by the way, is what appears before the tab stop on your page. I can make a bunch of dots appear before it, or I can make hyphens appear before it. I'm going to use no leader. I'm just going to click Set. And now, because I clicked Set, I'm still in this menu, but my 2-inch tab stop is set to being a center tab stop. I want my 5-inch tab stop to be a decimal tab, so I'm going to click decimal and then I click Set. And then I want my 7-inch tab stop to be a right tab. So I click the 7, I click right, I click Set. And now all of my tab stops for this center line should be set. Let's see what happens. If I click OK. Now, in my version of Microsoft Word, for some reason, the decimal tab is misbehaving. It's treating it as if there is a decimal and a bunch of spaces in. If I ever want to see what's going on with tabs, this is very important for you to know. You will probably use this sometime during this assignment. You can click the Home tab at the top and then click this paragraph marker. What this does is it shows all of the marks, the keystrokes that you put into your document, including things that you normally can't see like tabs and spaces. So if I click this, maybe it'll give me a hint at what's going on. It doesn't. For some reason, my decimal tab is just moving way over like that. So I'm going to just delete some information out of there. I think there was actually a tab in there. I think that was the problem. Between decimal and tab, there was an additional tab. But there we go. And now all of my tabs are behaving like they should. The only one that's sort of misbehaving is this left tab. Because remember, to invoke the tab, you need to actually press the tab key before the text that you want to move over. If I want this left tab text to appear at the first tab stop, I have to click before it and press tab, and that inserts that little tab arrow. Okay, I'm going to turn off those markers because we don't really need those. And let's just take a look and make sure everything's lined up right. My left tab here should be lined up at the left tab marker. Oops, I actually inserted another tab. There we go. If you actually insert another tab by mistake, you can just drag it onto an existing tab of the same type and it disappears. So I accidentally inserted one at about 0.3. I'm just going to drag it over my 0.251 and that gets rid of it. But notice it is aligned right at the left tab marker. The center tab should be aligned centered on the center tab marker, which it is. The decimal tab we'll talk about in a second, but the right tab should be right aligned at the right tab marker, which it is. So everything's lined up perfectly. Now decimal tab is sort of unique. It behaves like a right tab, except when you have a string of numbers. Oops, let me just double click over that. I'm going to enter a $sign. When you have a string of numbers, it will align at the tab marker where the decimal point is. And the reason you would do that is because if you have a whole bunch of numbers, it's really convenient for your eyes to see them all lined up at the decimal place. So if I had a decimal tab set at 5 inches on the next line too, the number on that line would be lined up right below this one with the decimal points lining up. Those are the different types of tabs that you can insert. There's a left tab, which aligns your text so that the text lines up evenly on the left side. There's a center tab, which aligns your text so that it is centered along that tab. A decimal tab that allows you to line everything up by decimal places, and a right tab that aligns it so the right side is all lined up. Now, notice a few things. I entered all of this text and I entered these tab markers, but these tab markers only applied to this line of text. If I wanted them to apply to all of this text, I would have had to have highlighted all of it. But here's the thing. There's no real easy way for me to now take those tabs and apply them to all the text, because as soon as I click on all of it, all of my tab markers will either gray out because they're not applying to everything that I've highlighted, or they'll disappear altogether like they did here. How can I get my tabs now to apply to all of the other text? If I highlight this line of text, and go to Format Painter, I can paint that formatting over everything, and it will paint my tab formatting as well. The only problem with that is I see I have another extra tab in here still, so I'm going to get rid of that extra tab in decimal tab, and there we are. Also notice that I need to click before the text for these two lines and tab it over. All right, so those are the sorts of things that you're going to have to do in this assignment. You have to format different sections of text with different kinds of tabs. There's another key feature of tabs that you're going to have to use, and that is the tab leader. Let me show you how that works. I'm just going to click any one of these tabs to open the tabs menu. Notice I accidentally inserted a tab at 6.94 because I clicked a little bit off of the tab. To get rid of that, I just highlight it and click clear. Not clear all, but just clear gets rid of one tab, and now it's gone. In order for me to save that change, I have to hit OK eventually. But the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 7-inch tab, so notice I'm clicking on 7-inch, and I'm going to add a leader to it. I'm going to use the dot leader because that's one you're using in your assignment, and I'm going to click OK, and notice that now, leading up to that tab from the previous tab, there is a trail of dots, of periods, that connects those two. That's how you make those leaders in tabs. You have to double click to open up the tab menu, select the tab that you want to alter, and then add a leader. Also notice that to add it to all this entire section at the same time, I had to highlight the section and then go through those steps, because then it did the entire section. Otherwise, it would just done the line that had the cursor in it. All right, so that's how you take care of that. There's just one other thing I need to mention about this assignment. You'll notice that all of this text is spread out. Anytime I hit enter and type a new line of text, it always adds an extra space in between, which I don't really want there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of this, and I'm just going to check the spacing, because doesn't it seem like this is double spaced? But if I go to check the spacing, I see that actually if I double space it, it spreads out even more. It is single spaced, it's just behaving sort of funny. And the reason for that is because Microsoft Word, by default, will add a space after every paragraph. So when you hit the enter key and enter a paragraph break, it adds a space after the paragraph as well. To get rid of that, you have to go down to where it says remove space after paragraph and click on that. And that gets rid of all of the extra spaces that shouldn't be there in the document. All right, there's just a couple of other adjustments that we need to make, and then you can go ahead and get started on this. I just wanted to point out, remember, this entire thing needs to be in Times New Roman font. That's the font that this sheet is typed in. You'll see that there are marks on the sheet that explain most of the things that you need to know. However, I am going to tell you, this is 16-point font up here at the top, the Old Testament by God. Notice that this has no tab markers invoked. And that can be accomplished one of two ways. Either you can just never hit the tab key, or you can select these two lines of text and go to the tab menu and clear all of the tabs. These are just centered in the middle of the page. Okay, now notice that this is centered. The chapter numbers, though, use what's called a centering tab. That means it's that center tab type at 3.5, and it's entered there so that the text aligns with 3.5. The final thing that I wanted to mention, down here at the bottom, you'll see that there's no notes about how to set up this term label above all of these different numbers. Here's how I want you to do it. I want you to insert a left tab here, like you would for all of these numbers in this list. You're going to use a left tab here. And then for term, you're going to type the word term on the left tab, and then you're just going to hit the space key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, so it's going to be aligned to the left tab, but you need to space key over 5 times. Just so you know, this text is in bold, and all of this text has just been selected and underlined. That's why this has a line underneath it. It's just been underlined. Same with taxes here. Taxes was selected and highlighted, and so was $11,878.43. This line was selected and underlined, and that's where that line comes from. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget, when you're finished with your document, if you typed everything at the top like I did, don't forget to go to Layout, the Page Setup menu, click on the Layout tab, and then align your page so it's centered vertically so that everything moves down that way. That's how you use tab stops and a whole bunch of other things. Please feel free to go back and reference any parts of this video that you found helpful. Also feel free to let me know if you need any specific help on anything that you need to do for this assignment. God bless your day.